If you met someone new and wanted to ask what they do for work in Spanish, how could you ask them? How do you say things like, what do you do? Or do you like your job? Or even just react naturally without feeling a bit awkward?
At the end of today's episode, you'll be able to ask someone what they do for work in Spanish, react in a natural way when they answer, and keep the conversation flowing, all as a confident beginner speaker. Vamos, Spanglish amigos, let's do it. Welcome to Spanglish Friends, the podcast for true beginner Spanish learners.
Hola amigos, I'm Val, your experienced Spanish teacher and co-host from Venezuela.
And I'm Em, your Australian co-host who's been learning Spanish for 10 years.
We'll help you get confident listening and speaking beginner Spanish with content you can actually use in real-life conversations.
Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and follow us on socials at Spanglish_Friends. Let's get started.
Comencemos.
Bienvenidos de nuevo, Spanglish amigos. Welcome back.
Bienvenidos a nuestro episodio 48, our episode 48.
And today we're talking about another very real-life beginner topic, which is how do you ask someone about their job in Spanish? It's a topic of conversation that's going to come up all the time when you're meeting someone new, potentially at work, whilst traveling, at a party, or you might even be asked to use this in a Spanish class.
This episode is a continuation of episode 44, where we taught you how to respond in basic Spanish. So these two episodes are very connected. If you want to go back to the basics, pause this episode and head there first.
That's right. We taught you there how to say things like, I work in this profession or this is my job. So if you want to learn that first, definitely head back to episode 44. But in today's episode, we're answering 3 further questions that beginner students always have when they're starting to be bold and ask others about what they do in Spanish. They include, what questions do you use to actually ask someone what they do for work in Spanish? Secondly, how do you react naturally when someone tells you about their job? Connecting phrases can you use to be like, oh yeah, that's interesting. And number 3 is, how do you keep the conversation going with some simple follow-up questions as a beginner?
You'll hear all of this in a short mini conversation, en nuestra conversación pequeña first, and then we'll break it down step by step as always. Here, Em and I are going to be pretending we're 2 people meeting for the first time and talking about what we do for work. Remember, friends, you don't need to understand every word. Just listen for familiar words you recognize, especially job words and reaction phrases.
Comencemos.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
¿A qué te dedicas?
Trabajo como arquitecta.
¡Qué interesante! ¿Te gusta tu trabajo?
Sí, me gusta mucho. ¿Y tú, Val, en qué trabajas?
Soy psicóloga.
Genial. ¿Trabajas algunos días desde casa?
Sí, a veces.
Okay, amigos, what you just heard was a simple, natural conversation about work, asking what someone else does, reacting politely, and asking a follow-up question.
Now, entonces, let's slow it down and break it into little pieces so you can start using them right away.
Vamos. Let's start with the most important question. How can you ask someone else what they do for work in Espanol?
There are a few very common ways you might hear. We are going to teach you 3 ways today.
Yes, and I've certainly heard all these different forms used in various contexts throughout my time learning Spanish the last 10 years and also traveling South America.
Probably the most natural and common one is ¿a qué te dedicas? This literally, amigos, means what do you dedicate yourself to? We know in English is what you do for work. ¿A qué te dedicas?
And another common one is ¿en qué trabajas?, which literally translates to in what do you work? What do you work in? Again, translation, what do you do for work? ¿En qué trabajas?
And a slightly more formal or textbook option is ¿cuál es tu profesión? Which means what is your profession? ¿Cuál es tu profesión? So here in summary and resumen, we have 3 common options you can ask someone. you could ask, ¿a qué te dedicas? ¿En qué trabajas? Or, ¿cuál es tu profesión?
Nice. We love opciones. We love options. So now you know how to ask someone or how you might be asked, what do you do for work? Let's talk about something beginners often forget, reactions. How do you react in Spanish when you ask them, what's your job? They respond with their job. And instead of just standing there and going, sí, 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 what could you react with to make the conversation more natural, more natural?
See, you don't need to immediately ask another question. Sometimes you just need to react naturally and follow up.
So, here are some very easy, natural reactions you can use, not just for when people tell you about their jobs, but for many different conversations you have as a beginner.
Let's say someone has just told you about a cool job they have. This is what you can say to keep the conversation going. You would have heard Em and I use a few of these in our mini conversation to recognize what the other speaker has said. One of them, you can say, que interesante, how interesting. You can also say, que bueno, that's good. Or, que bien, oh, nice. Genial, great.
For example, someone could say to me, Soy ingeniero, I'm an engineer. I could then reply with, que bien, like, that's nice.
Another example, if someone says to me, trabajo en marketing, we learned this structure, trabajo in our episode 44, which means I work in marketing. I could then reply, qué interesante, how interesting.
And these reactions are amazing for beginners because there's no grammar to worry about and they give you time to think about what you want to ask next. Very important to buy yourself thinking time. So once you've reacted, let's keep the conversation flowing with some super simple follow-up questions to really blow people away with your beginner Spanish skills.
And show, look at me, I have very good Spanish skills. The first one is incredibly useful. You can ask, ¿te gusta tu trabajo? Do you like your job?
¿Te gusta tu trabajo? Nice. Someone might say, sí, me gusta mi trabajo, which is what I said in the mini conversation. Another great follow-up question is, ¿trabajas algunos días desde casa? Breaking this down, it means, do you work some days from home? We know hybrid working is quite common these days. So, ¿trabajas algunos días? Do you work some days desde casa? Desde casa means from home.
You can also answer very simple as a beginner. If someone asks you this question, you can answer sí, which means yes, or no, which means no. A veces, sometimes, or if you work from home every day, you can say sí, siempre, yes, always.
Yes, and that's exactly what Val responded with in the mini conversation. I asked her, ¿trabajas algunos días desde casa? And she responded with, sí, a veces. Yes, sometimes.
This is all super, super practical and helpful.
Indeed. How cool is that, Spanglish friends? You are taking your beginner conversation skills to that next level. Today, you've learned 3 big things. Aprendemos 3 cosas importantes. ¿Cuáles son, Profe Val?
Muy bien. Número 1, you learn 3 ways to ask someone what they do for work using ¿a qué te dedicas? Or ¿en qué trabajas? Or ¿cuál es tu profesión? Número 2, you learn how to react naturally using phrases like oh, qué interesante. Qué bueno. Or qué genial. And our last one, número 3, you'll learn now 2 questions to have in your pocket to keep the conversation going. They include, ¿te gusta tu trabajo? And ¿trabajas algunos días desde casa?
Yes. And we want you to be able to put into practice right now what you've learnt today to commit it to memory with our reto de la semana, our challenge of the week. What's this week's challenge, Profe Val?
Este reto de la semana is write in the comments what was your favorite expression we taught you today in our Spanish lesson. Was it genial? Or qué interesante? Or qué bueno? Maybe you have another expression you've heard before and you want to use it. Share it with your fellow Spanglish friends.
Pop it in the comments right now or send us a direct message on Instagram. We'd love to feature you in an upcoming episode.
Talking about featuring people, Our Spanglish friend shout out of the week goes to Dormo.
Yes, they commented on our episode 42 post saying they just keep making excuses to learn Spanish and they're hoping to change this in 2026. We just wanted to say, we believe in you, Dorman. Consistency is key and we can't wait to see you shine this year. Thanks for being part of our awesome community.
Confiamos en ti. We believe in you. Totally. Amazing work today, as always, Spanglish friends. Muchísimas gracias por escucharnos. Thank you so much for listening to us. And remember, practice makes progress, not perfection.
And a quick spoiler alert before we head off. Next episode, we're going to be discussing how do you ask for prices in basic Spanish? How do you say things like, I want to buy that thing if you're shopping in a store, or how do you do a bit of bargaining where possible? Super handy skills for absolute beginners. We'll see you next week, friends.
Nos vemos, Spanglish legends. Ciao, ciao. Thanks for listening to Spanglish Friends. We're both so proud of the time you're investing to level up your Spanish skills.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, follow us, leave a rating, or tell a friend about the show. It helps our awesome community grow.
Join fellow beginner Spanish learners by following us on Instagram and TikTok at Spanglish_friends.
Congratulations on taking another step in your Spanish learning journey.
Hasta la próxima, amigos.